Good evening, welcome to PM Ghana here on Adwa Television. We stream live on Facebook, Adwa Television Ghana, and also on YouTube, Adwa _GH. A lot of things have been happening in this country for the past 3 days, I would say. We are already having internet challenges we are dealing with and battling with. But the issue concerning the passage of the proper human, sexual, and family value bill that was passed some few days ago in Parliament has generated a lot of back and forth. The back and forth is when the three arms of government that forms governance are having issues among themselves, and then we are waiting on what the judiciary will be saying about it. The name is Pepsival. Tonight's conversation is going to be how the Speaker of Parliament has punched back or punches back the president on the stand he's made so far as the LGBTQI bill is concerned. And then just this evening too, we've had conversation coming in from the Attorney General, coming into the Speaker of Parliament on the decision is taking so far as the concerns are there. These are good what we are going to have. But before we go on to the break, let's try to understand our minds on what is separation of powers and what are checks and balances. Now, in every democratic dispensation, the proponents of what the democratic system of governance should be, in the likes of the Aristotle, among other things there, have been able to come up with underpinning governance principles, underpinning theological theories that are to help so far as the governance dispensation is concerned. One of this principle is checks and balances. The checks and balances is on the three arms of government. Anytime governance is to take place, or you want to talk about governance in a democratic dispensation, we are talking about the executive, we are talking about the legislature, and then we are talking about the judiciary too as well. What do? Now, the legislature that is in the middle is to make laws. They make laws for the country. So the MPs we elect in all 275 constituencies go to Parliament, and their constitutional mandate is to make laws for the country. Now, when they make the laws, who is to do the implementation and then the enforcement? It has to do with the executive. That is why the executive controls the police. That's why the executive controls the military. That's why the executive control the people that are put into state institutions by way of ministers, deputy ministers, CEOs, among other things, to ensure that the policies, legislative policies, the laws that have been made by Parliament are being enforced by this group of people, that is the executive. Now, when there is an error, there is wrongdoing, who is supposed to ensure that they do the enforcement of the law that has been made? That is interpretation. Interpretation is done by the judiciary. So the judiciary too is there that is also supposed to do the interpretation of the laws that have been made, laws that are coming into the system, among other things there. So the 1992 Constitution in under Article 2 puts and invests into the courts of this land what they need to do so far as interpretation of the law is concerned. So the executive cannot interpret law. The legislature cannot interpret law. It is only with the judiciary that can interpret law. And a lot of things are at the disposal of the judiciary to ensure that these are done. Now, when people are found culpable of any wrongdoing, it is up to take only the judiciary to pronounce judgment. So it takes a court of competent jurisdiction to say that what you have done is wrong, is right, or in fact, it's not right or not wrong at all. It only takes the court. In fact, when a policeman arrests you, your MP cannot tell the policeman whether what you have arrest has been done is correct or incorrect. The police will have to prepare a charge sheet, take you to court, make a case, and it is only at the court that a determination can be made as to whether the arrest that has been made and the crime you are being charged with, it is proper or improper. That is how these three arms of government work beautifully. Now, what is checks and balances? It is expected that some arms of government may go beyond their constitutional remit. They go beyond the bounds that they have in the constitution. So the principle of checks and balances is to ensure that there is a rule of law where each and every arms of government is equal in the eyes of the law, and all of them too are working independently of what they are expected to do. Now, checks and balances works with the twin brother called separation of powers. Every arm of government has their own power. So the president of the Republic of Ghana cannot go into parliament and be the speaker of parliament. No. It's the onus of the speaker and parliamentarians to be heard by the speaker. The president is the leader of the executive arm. He has his own executive powers invested into him by the constitution. Likewise, neither the chief justice, likewise, neither the president or the speaker can go to the judiciary and call themselves the head of the judiciary or act as chief justices. These are the separation of powers we have. But to ensure that we have checks in what is happening, the constitution makes it beautiful by saying that, okay, you are the executive president. Ensure that you bring nominations on who you want to become speaker. So at the inauguration of every parliament, the parliamentarians who have been sworn in elect a speaker, and the speaker nomination is drawn from the executive. In Ghana, what happened in this very 8th parliament was that His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo nominated once again Professor Aaron Okwe. And then per the status of parliament, Mark Okwe had to go and be contested by another person, that is Alban Kingsford Gbagbe, the current speaker. And the beauty of democracy and the dynamics as we may have it, had the speaker Gbagbe winning the elections. Now, what happens to the judiciary? The constitution says that the president, in consultation with the legal council, would do what? Would appoint or would nominate a chief justice. When the chief justice is nominated, the beauty and the principle of democracy, checks and balances, and separation of powers is that that nominee, right upon the naming, does not become chief justice, but would now go and sit in parliament and will be vetted by parliamentarians as to whether the person qualifies to hold the position as chief justice. This is what checks and balances talks about in a democratic dispensation. Very beautiful. Likewise, every minister, deputy minister, appointed to work in the government is to be vetted by the legislative arm of government to ensure that some of these things goes on. Now, in the breadth of making law for this country, we've gotten to a point whereby we are saying that, yes, we have laws that are seen to, like the criminal acts, criminal laws in this country, is saying that anytime people have a sexual encounter should be with the binary, a male and a female. Now, anytime we have a man and a man having sex, we have a man and an animal having sex, we have an animal and a woman having sex. When a woman having sex, it does not make it natural. So we call it unnatural carnal knowledge. That is what the Criminal Act is saying. But the same constitution somewhere in 22, 24 to 27 is saying that the state is supposed to come up with some policies to guide the culture and the values of this country. Under this, some proponents, members of parliament, have used the private legal member bill opportunities that they have to say that they are proposing that we have a law that will guide the future of our children by not exposing them to same-sex marriage, same-sex issues, and same-sex relationship. Hence, the human proper value, whatever. He's been passed. But when it was passed, what has been the conversations after it? This is just what we are going to do as Curtain Raiser. When we come back from the break, we'll look at certain elements that have popped up so far on this my touch screen here, beautiful one there. Shout out to Reginald and Sanjay, the director of Adult Television, for bringing this touch screen here. There's going to be my touch screen to just do a little editorial on what really is going to happen tonight. From what has happened in the executive arm of government under the presidency, the response that have come in so far by the Speaker of Parliament, people are calling it whatever name they are calling it, but at the end of the day, we'll just suppose it. And in that same beauty of checks and balances, there's an officer called the Attorney General who advised the state on all legal issues and is the defendant chief of the state, of both the executive and the legislature, as written more of like an advice to the speaker. We look at this advice that the Attorney General has written to the speaker. Let's not forget that you will hear the speaker today make references on similar matter on what he cited the Attorney General, telling His Excellency the President. We are here to look at the role the Attorney General will play in all of this and in moving forward. Let's borrow some of their words. In the foregoing events, we are going on a quick break. When we come back, we'll advise ourselves accordingly.
Lent is a period of fast, self-denial, remorse, giving, and admonishment. Join us this season on the Lenten Afternoon Meditation, live on Adwa TV, from Mondays to Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. as these great people of God take us through moments of reflection, prayer, atonement, meditation, purging, and reconciliation with God and one another. Don't miss this divine opportunity to commune with God for just 30 minutes on the Lenten Afternoon Meditation.
Announcements on Adwa TV. Contact Adwa TV for your general announcements, proclamations and publications, job vacancies, etc. at a very affordable rate. Call 050-92-57754, 020-9494-258, or visit our marketing desk at Step Work Promises. Adwa TV, bringing good things to life.
Welcome back from the 10-day watching PM Ghana. The name is Pepsival, and then we are looking at the back and forth and then the fallouts from Parliament yesterday. And so far as the human rights and proper family value bill is concerned, this is what we are going to look into. First of all, let's go to the executive. Now, there has been a move by the Clerk of Parliament to transmit the approved bill, and then the work that the clerk is doing is in accordance with law, as enshrined in Article 106 of the Constitution, and then further in the Interpretations Act 2 as well, where the Clerk of Parliament, after the approval of a bill, is expected to look at that bill and its nature and then transmit it to the President for signifying. It's in the Constitution. And the President earlier in his response or in a greetings to the diplomatic corps said that he's aware of some legal matters that have been sanctioned. And then he would before the conversation comes to better, he would look for the courts to resolve it. But the matter has been made final by the Executive Secretary to the President, a very good friend of mine, Nana Sante Bedioto, Secretary to the President. And then in a letter dated 18th November 18th March 2024. It says that Honorable Clerk, transmission of the Human Sexual Rights and Family Value Bill 2024. It has come to the attention of the office that while the President and other senior officials of the presidency were at Pediatric for a cabinet retreat on Thursday, 14th of March 2024, that is a week ago from today, you attempted to submit the Human Sexual Rights and Family Value Bill 2024, the bill to Jubilee House, for the President to signify his assent or otherwise to the bill. The office is aware of 2 pending applications for an order of interlocutory injunction, both filed on 7th March 2024 to the Supreme Court in Dr. Ambanda Odwe versus the Speaker of Parliament and the Attorney General, case number JI-13-2023, and Richard Sky versus Parliament of Ghana, the Attorney General, case number JI-9-2024, respectively, to restrain you and Parliament from transmitting the bill to the President, and also to restrain the President from signifying his assent to the bill pending the final determination of the matter. First paragraph, second paragraph, people don't really have issue with that. Now let's continue. The Attorney General has, by letter dated 18th March 2024, informed the President that he has been duly served with both applications and has advised the President not to take any step in relation to the bill until the matter raised by the suits are determined by the Supreme Court. It is understanding of this office that both applications have been duly served on Parliament. Therefore, it is proper for you to transmit. Therefore, it would be improper for you to transmit the bill to the Presidency, and equally improper for the office to receive the bill until the Supreme Court determines the matter raised in the suits. Indeed, this is where the issue concerning interlocutory injunctions and then the law begins from. Because for those of you that don't know, Nana Asante Bediato is a lawyer. So now, Asante Bediato comes to come and give us some law lectures in this one. What is the law lecture? Asante Bediato says that indeed it is settled law that during the pendency of an interlocutory injunction application, the status quo ante ought to be preserved and no action should be taken that would result in prejudicing the injunctive relief sought and undermining the authority of the court. This is where the law classes and the law lecture began from. So I'm not surprised that when the speaker was speaking yesterday, he also went to go through on a journey to give us some issues on law and law classes or law lectures, Law 101 yesterday, because it is clear that the Secretary to the President, Asante Bediato, came in to come and talk about what his understanding on interlocutory injunction and in the face of law should happen. And clearly says that the status quo ante ought to be preserved. That is what happens within the legal framework as far as judicial application or interlocutory application is concerned. It needed to be preserved. And how do they preserve it? That there should be no action. No action should be taken. That the President should not take any action by 1, receiving the bill, 2, and otherwise assenting or doing other thing to the bill. Because that would result in prejudicing. It might end up giving a prejudicative instrument or a thought to what the court will be saying at the end of the application. So the injunctive relief sought and undermining the authority of the court. Undermining the authority of the court. For instance, the President has been said that for going ahead to sack Level as Auditor General, it means that the President has acted ultra vires. Now, the court has given a pronouncement. That is a late pronouncement. But now, that court ruling has affected the authority of the President. That is what Asante Bediato is saying, that so that we don't go through this rigmarole, we don't go through this issue again, why don't we wait for the injunctive application to be settled by the court, then we go through it. Now, the last paragraph, that is where the beef and then the meat of the issue is. The beef, the big meat, you know. This is where it is. In the circumstances, you are kindly requested. So when people say that the letter is rude, I don't know what rude comes in when. Selassie, what's the meaning of kindly requested? Kindly is the word of courtesy. You are kindly requested to cease and desist from transmitting the bill to the president until the matters before the Supreme Court are resolved. This is what it is on the face of the document. That you are kindly requested. You are kindly. It didn't say that you are hereby seized. You are therefore in foregoing. You dare not. You shall not transfer. It says that you are kindly requested to cease and desist from transmitting the bill to the president until the matters before the Supreme Court are what? Are resolved. Best wishes. Nana Bediotu Asante, Secretary to the President, the Clerk to Parliament House, attention Mr. Cyril K.O. Insiam. The copies have been given to the Vice President, Chief of Staff, the Attorney General, Minister of Justice, and then the Majority Leader of Parliament have been given to this. Why the Majority Leader? Because he's the leader in charge of government businesses. That is why this letter is there. Now, friends, after going through this letter, the Speaker of Parliament, Right Honorable Alban Sumani Kingsford Bagbin, aka Axe Bagbin, aka Parliamentary Mugabe. In fact, the man knows parliamentary proceedings from here to Kuwait and back. He was on a trip outside the country for the past 3 days. Information reaching me is that the Speaker actually flew into the country just yesterday afternoon. And upon touching base into the country from the Kotoka International Airport, he drove straight to Parliament. And then surprisingly, the Speaker was not meant to be in seat because he was not meant to be on seat because he had traveled. When the Speaker entered, the Speaker said, "Look, I have to take my seat and I have things to say." The Speaker has given us some 64 paragraphs on what he thinks the President should not have done, or the presidency through the Secretary of the President should not have done so far as this bill is concerned. What is the response from the Speaker of Parliament? Let's go and have a look at that. Listen to him. When we come back, we are going to juxtapose his wording one after the other to see where or who is wrong in our opinion, so far as our touchscreen is here to help us. Now, let's go to Speaker.
I must express my profound regret concerning the conduct displayed by the President following Parliament's successful unanimous passage of the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill 2024. The behavior exhibited by the President in refusing to accept the transmission of this bill not only deviates from established democratic practices, but also undermines the spirit of cooperative governance and mutual respect for the arms of government. This is a principle that forms the cornerstone of our political system. Such actions, if left unchecked, risk setting dangerous precedents that threaten the integrity and functionality of our democratic institutions. To situate this statement in the appropriate context, it is crucial to acknowledge a disturbing pattern emerging from the President, which points to a concerning disregard for the foundational principles enshrined in the Constitution 1992. This pattern has once again been made evident in the President's recent refusal to accept the presentation of the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill. The recent move is not isolated. It forms part of a series of actions that undermine the legislative process. Honorable members, I now make comments on the injunction applications. This House has been duly served with 2 injunction applications in respect of the bill. The applications titled Richard Sky versus the Parliament of Ghana and the Attorney General. And the second, Dr. Amanda Odoy versus the Speaker of Parliament and the Attorney General. The Executive Secretary to the President noted in his letter that, and I quote, "It is settled law that during the pendency of an interlocutory injunction application, the status quo ante ought to be preserved and no action be taken that will result in prejudicing the injunctive relief sought and undermining the authority of the court," unquote. Honorable members, an injunction is a judicial order that restrains a person from beginning or continuing an action that threatens or breaches the legal right of another, or that compels a person to carry out a certain act, such as correcting a wrongful state of affairs. In the context of our law, interlocutory injunctions serve as an important tool for maintaining the status quo pending the resolution of a legal dispute, ensuring that the parties involved do not engage in actions that could cause irreparable harm or fundamentally alter the situation before the court as an opportunity to decide the case. The precedents, as I've just set out, show that courts have been slow to grant injunctions that would have to halt the work of Parliament, recognizing the profound implications such actions could have on the legislative autonomy and the balance of powers within the government. The President's refusal to accept the transmission of the bill is, by all accounts, not supported by the constitutional and statutory provisions that guide our legislative process. The Constitution clearly delineates the steps to be followed once a bill has been passed by Parliament, mandating the transmission of the bill to the President for assent or rejection. Therefore, the refusal to even accept the bill for consideration falls outside the legal bounds established by our constitutional framework. It is incumbent upon the President to accept the bill and take the necessary action within the prescribed constitutional limits, whether that action is assent, refusal, or referral to the Council of State.
We are back on your screens. Together is a beautiful place to be and forever begins with you. Your ideal family-centered show Family Life has returned to the screens with now Oferiwo Bells as the new host.
Have you conquered the world yet? Or what's the reception between you and your husband? Is the wife and the husband partners in crime? Or they are steps apart? Family, they say, is like a group of trees in the forest. From afar, you see them together, but get a step closer, there you will realize that each tree has a standing point.
Marriage, where mine becomes ours and yours becomes mine.
We do apologize for earlier there, but the video you saw earlier was a Speaker of Parliament, Right Honourable Kingsford Bagbeng, as Bagbeng people call him, a man that is very much experienced in parliamentary proceedings, and people would want to learn from him. But if you probably did not articulate well, or maybe you didn't follow the statement that the Speaker was reading yesterday, now this is a bit of highlights that we are giving to you. This is where it starts from that. At the onset, I must express my profound regret concerning the conduct displayed by the presidency following Parliament's successful unanimous passage of the Human Sexual Value Bills 2021. The Right Honourable Speaker, Ax Bagbin, is saying this one. And then this one is coming in from the office of the Speaker as part of the videos they were doing there. We'll move on to the next one. Okay. The behavior exhibited by the presidency in refusing to accept the transmission of this bill is not the bill not only deviates from the established democratic principles. So these are key words that the Speaker is using. Established democratic principles, but also undermines the spirit of cooperative governance and mutual respect for the arms of government. That is why I started the show by giving you what the arms of government are: the executive, legislative, and then the judiciary. The Speaker is saying that the mere fact that the president is saying that he will not accept the transmission of the bill goes further to do what? To undermine and then deviate from the established democratic principles and then the cooperative spirit of governance and mutual respect for the three arms of government. This is what the Speaker is saying. The next one. Yes, notably, the presidency's refusal to accept the transmission of the bill has not only been formally communicated to the House. So the Speaker then admits that, okay, fine, by way of established way of communication between the presidency and then the Parliament, it is through the president himself and then to the Speaker. And in some other cases, we might have the executive secretary to the president, then to the clerk. These are things that are popping in here. But he's saying that for as not being formally communicated to this House through the established channels of official correspondence from the president to this House, the absence of an official communication to the House regarding the president's refusal is troubling. That is where I have concern with my esteemed Speaker. That the president, even if he just received it on the 14th, he has 7 days. 7 days. And you're saying that the fact that you've not been able to receive official communication to the House regarding the president's refusal to is troubling. Yet it does not diminish. Thank you. It doesn't diminish the gravity of the situation nor our responsibilities to address it. Hello, Speaker. Let's move on. Let's move on to the esteemed Speaker's conversation. Yes, honourable members, you will recall that on the 19th of July 2023, the Supreme Court considered and dismissed an application for an interlocutory injunction. In fact, there are two types of injunctions that people need to understand. We have interlocutory injunction and perpetual injunction. Now, interlocutory injunctions are normally interim. It's very short. You get it? So maybe can last for probably a week or two. But when you seek for a perpetual injunction, perpetual is derived from the word everlasting. So you can replace the word perpetual to be everlasting. So we have an interim, that is interlocutory injunction, and then we have a perpetual injunction. Now, the word interlocutory is being used a lot. So for the purpose of education, the interlocutory injunction that is being sought here is, in fact, an immediate one. Present, just very short. To sought injunct the proceedings of Parliament in respect to the bill. The court in that case, Dr. Amanda Odway versus the Speaker of Parliament and the Attorney General, case number J1 13/2023, reasoned that the application failed to meet the threshold for the grant of interlocutory injunction, and that injunction was seeking to halt the parliamentary proceedings on the passage of the human rights and sexual value bills. That is what the proceeding was seeking to do. But the court in their wisdom is saying that the case failed, that is the applicant, failed to demonstrate enough threshold. The application did not meet the threshold to grant that interlocutory injunction. The next one. Honorable members, in the light of this process, the House is unable to continue to consider the nominations by His Excellency the President in the spirit of upholding rule of law, quote and unquote. Because the reason it's quote and unquote here, the Speaker says that he is going to borrow the same words that the Attorney General used in the letter given to the President. That he said he cited, that is on the 18th of March letter. That, honorable members, in the light of this process, the House is unable to continue to consider the nominations of His Excellency the President in the light, in the spirit of upholding rule of law, until after the determination of the application for interlocutory injunction by the Supreme Court. What is this one talking about? In fact, Roxanne Dafia, who is a member of Parliament for South Dine, is in court. What is Roxanne seeking? Roxanne is seeking some few conversations that needs to take place because of the reshuffle that the President made. That is the Vows Day reshuffle the President made on the 14th of February. And he's saying that some ministers have been discharged of their portfolios. He does not know why they have to be moved to other ministries. One of those ministers are the Minister for Information, Kojo Nkrumah, has been moved to Minister for Works and Housing. And then in the firm of post understanding, if the President says that he's discharged them of their portfolios, then they cease to be ministers of state. Hence, before they can go back into another ministry, they need to come back to Parliament and be re-vetted. Now, in that same rift of sermons that Dafia Mekpo took to the Supreme Court, Dafia Mekpo is also seeking an interlocutory injunction on the Speaker to discontinue the vetting of the nominees for ministerial and deputy ministerial portfolios. Now, the Speaker is saying that the President has started some precedents that the Ghanaians are going to follow. So that precedent, he himself as Speaker of Parliament is going to emulate. That is why it says that in the spirit of upholding rule of law, until a determination is made on that application that has been filed by Honorable Roxanne Dafia Mekpo, seeking an interlocutory injunction by the Supreme Court, until that is done, the Speaker is saying that he will not allow, he will not grant that the House continues to do what? To speak on this matter. Let's move on to the next slide. Now, this one comes back to talk about the letter that the President has sent. That the contents of the letter are bet, not formally presented to us. This should say that the Speaker of Parliament is clarifying that the letter that has been, he's addressing in this statement, has not formally, it's not been formally presented to the House. So the Speaker is, one way or the other, either picking intelligence from media news, or the clerk that was sent the letter has told the Speaker about it. So the Speaker is saying that in the context of correspondence to the House has not been formally been given the letter. Hence, he wants to still speak to it. That's what the Speaker said. I didn't say this. The Speaker said it yesterday. That the contents of the letter, I bet, not formally presented to us, have come to our attention, compelling us to confront the issues it raises. It is a matter of great concern that the executive branch has chosen to disregard the established constitutional structures that facilitate constructive dialogue and collaboration between the branches of government. Oh my God. What a learning for us. What a learning for us. So, Nicholas, what the Speaker is saying is that though this has not been officially informed the House, he's been compelled. He's been compelled to confront the issues that have been raised as a result of the letter that has come in from the presidency. The next one, please. The next one, please. Yes. Now, this is an interesting scenario here. It says that this ongoing scenario poses a grave threat to our legislative authority and, by extension, the democratic principles we strive to uphold. Very strong languaging. The implication of such executive actions extend far beyond the immediate legislative items at hand. They erode the foundational checks and balances. Remember, I spoke about checks and balances. Checks and balances that our forebears painstakingly established to ensure a vibrant and a functional democracy. This is what the Speaker is saying. that look, what the acts that the president has exhibited right now, it goes just beyond their legislative prowesses, but it goes far to erode the foundational checks and balances that our forebears, Justice JFK and the likes, Peter Lajete them have strived for. The checks and balances they have sweat for. The constitution of the 1992 constitution of Ghana has been able to bet for us these checks and balances to ensure that we learn and emulate. We've gone through a lot of legal system, a lot of constitutions. But at the end of the day, the 1992 constitution stands the checks of time. Let's move on. Okay. When important legislative work, the product of rigorous debate and consensus building within this house, is disregarded without just cause, it is not only disrespect the legislative branch, but also disenfranchises the citizens we are sworn to serve. This blatant disregard for legislative proceedings and constitutional mandates risks setting a perilous precedent that could weaken the very fabric of our governance structure. This is where I beg to differ with my esteemed speaker. The speaker is saying that if care is not taken, the disregard for legislative work can go ahead to disenfranchise the citizens they've sworn to, and then the blatant disregard for legislative processes and constitutional mandates risks setting perilous precedents that could weaken the very fiber of the governance structure. Now, the same speaker is saying that the president said is wrong. By the end of the day, the speaker went to the end and said that, oh, because the president has set this precedent, let me also go to the same line of the precedents. Same precedent that you are saying that it is not correct. Hello, Mr. Speaker. Good evening. That's what. In the light of these circumstances, I love this. It is incumbent for this House to stand united in its response to this affront of legislative authority vested in it by the Constitution and the people they serve. We must articulate a collective voice that unequivocally condemns the disregard for our constitutional structures and reaffirms our commitment to upholding the rule of law. This situation calls for a principled stand, emphasizing the importance of adherence to the procedures and norms that govern our democratic institution. We will not continue with the rest of the things again. This is what we are talking about. That the speaker was charging both sides of the house to be united on this. Are the house, or is the house united in confronting the stance of the speaker from last night till today? Right after the speaker adjourned the house to Sunday. If you don't know what Sunday is, it is indefinite. So like you go to school and then they say they give indefinite suspension. It's not you mention the word indefinite, they say you'll be suspended Sindai. Whether it is Sindai or Sinadai or whatever be the case. I think we call it Sinadai back in the time I was in junior high school, but it's Sindai. The Speaker of Parliament yesterday adjourned the House Sindai. Right after that, conversation coming from the majority side indicated that, in fact, they were even trying to make moves to speak to the minority side to ensure that, oh, let's go back to the speaker and speak to the speaker. But they said, no, don't happy. But yes, here what my very good friend Castle Atu Forsen, former Minister of Finance and now the minority leader. What did he say right to the media right after the Sendai was declared? Castle Atu Forsen, what are you saying?
I invited you to this press conference to respond to President Akufo-Addo's statement on the transmission of the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill 2024. Yesterday, Parliament and the people of Ghana became aware of a despicable and tactless letter from our President to Parliament on the subject transmission of the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill 2024. The letter constitutes a threat to our constitutional democracy, and it must therefore not be entertained at all. We will not allow His Excellency the President Akufo-Addo, to talk down at Parliament in the disrespectful and condescending tone that is contained in his letter addressed to Parliament. We wish to remind His Excellency the President that just in case he has forgotten, that Parliament of Ghana is not an appendage of the executive arm of government. Neither is Parliament an extension of the office of the President. The Constitution of Ghana spells out in plain language when the President of the Republic of Ghana must do when Parliament passes a bill and present to His Excellency the President. The President must assent to the bill or must refuse to assent to the bill when it is presented to him as the President of the Republic. These are the only options, and in this case, there is no middle ground at all per the constitutional imperative. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also say that in the instance case of the Human Sexual Right and Family Values Bill 2024, President Akufo-Addo has taken a strange and alien position which is unknown to the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. Given that Parliament has been injuncted in a matter of the President's nominee for the position of ministers and deputy ministers, it is obvious that this Honorable House is also unable and cannot approve those ministerial nominees His Excellency the President has also presented to Parliament. At this point, the President may have to be innovative, dynamic, and think out of the box by downsizing the size of his government. Let me say that merely piling on numbers by way of appointing ministers and deputy ministers does not signal.
We're here to address you on certain developments that took place on the floor of the House. As you are well aware, Mr. President, in a letter dated 18th of March, through his secretary, Nana Beditu Asante, expressed certain views regarding certain matters before the Supreme Court of the land. Which letter today Mr. Speaker had cause to respond to. Mr. Speaker expressed his disagreement regarding the content of the said letter. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker went beyond expressing this disagreement and rather pronounced judgment on what in his view was wrong. Mr. Speaker did not only stop there, he also used very unsavory words to describe Mr. President. We believe that in a democracy, we have our right to disagree on views expressed, but we do not have right to say things to denigrate another. This, we think, is very unacceptable. Now let me get into the main issue. Mr. Speaker said that Mr. President was undermining democracy and that he should have resorted to the Constitution in making certain communications to the House. We in the majority beg to disagree on the position taken by him. If you carefully read the letter that was sent to Parliament, Mr. President limited himself to the processes before the court. And the fact that Parliament itself, through an affidavit, had joined issues. Parliament has filed an affidavit in opposition and is in court. In fact, Parliament is a party to the suit. So for us, we do not see how this would have to affect the proceedings of Parliament. In any event, Mr. Speaker has always deferred to the leadership of the House to guide him in the conduct of business. This morning, the leadership of the House sat together to discuss the various items to be taken. We have finished some of them. There were some that we were supposed to take, and we're told that Mr. Speaker would have to take the chair. It's very disappointing that after Mr. Speaker had made known his own views about the letter sent from the presidency to the clerk, he adjourned the House Synod without giving room for the leadership of the House to even comment. This we find very strange. But this is a democracy. We believe, as Mr. Speaker himself said, and I'll quote him, that this impasse calls for reflection. This impasse calls for reflection. I will play that out to Mr. Speaker himself, that we all need to reflect on the way forward as a nation. He said he was not going into the matter, as that would undermine the outcome of same. But we all know that the very issue that was raised by Honorable Dafia Mekpo had to do with the continuing ministers who had been reshuffled to other ministries. The issue of constitutionality of certain nominees had been determined by way of they going through the vetting process, a report coming before the House for debate and final decision. So for me, these are two unrelated issues. How can Dafia Mekpo raise an issue regarding a minister who has been transferred? Let's put it in that state, that a minister in one ministry has been moved to another ministry, and the words used by Mr. President was that he has relieved them of their portfolio and moving them to another ministry. How does that affect a situation where a nominee has been referred to a appointment committee? Appointment committee has vetted that person, brought a report, and you say that there's an injunction application pending. Therefore, such a situation cannot be considered by Parliament. This is bad faith. This is bad faith. Because you have two unrelated issues being conjoined to create a certain political effect. But again, since this is a chamber where we will do public business, we believe that we need to reflect on these issues and sit together as stakeholders in this politics to get things done. We will rest our case, but before, let me also express disappointment at the conduct of the minority. Is it the case that they were aware of what was going to happen? Is it the case that they would always see no evil and say no evil? Is it the case that they are in support of this action to obstruct government business? They should remember that the people of Ghana are watching. We have ministers who are supposed to manage ministries, to conduct public business for the benefit of the people of Ghana. What the minority has done today clearly shows that they are not on the side of democracy. Indeed, they want government business to come to a halt through their conduct, because they were nowhere ready to get us to even engage Mr. Speaker. They were ready to pack and get to their various cars and go home.
Welcome back from the tender. And then that is Afenyo Marking, majority leader. So, in fact, because it's an either mixed fancy, it is Afenyo Marking. It's not Afenyo Marking, who is a majority leader. Earlier, we heard Kasalatu Forsen, who is also the minority leader. But just yesterday, after that, in the evening, around 9 p.m., in fact, my contacts within the majority caucus also sent me a statement they sent in there. And then the statement is captioned, "Statement by the majority in Parliament concerning the Right Honourable Speaker Bagbin's sole and arbitrary decision to adjourn the House Sendai without the approval of the President's ministerial nominations and then the abandonment of other government businesses." In fact, my place of interest is not paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but 7. It says that it is a matter of regret that Mr. Speaker arbitrarily and capriciously, on its own notion, adjourned the House indefinitely without the House considering the ministerial nominees who have been vetted and reports on them duly laid for the consideration of the House. The Right Honourable Speaker premised his decision on a monumental error that a suit number JI 12-2024 filed on the 18th day of March 2024 between Roxanne Nelson Eche K. Dafia Mekpo versus the Speaker of Parliament and the Attorney General, an injunction has been filed in the Supreme Court restraining him and the House from vetting, considering and approving the President's ministerial nominees. Even a casual reading of at the Supreme Court action is clear that the Mekpo's action and the injunctive process related to what is conceived as revoked ministers who have been reshuffled into new ministries. In fact, it continues. And yesterday, there were these 5 issues that were to be raised in Parliament: tax waivers, laying of papers, considering of bills, outstanding IDA facility, and then the approval of ministerial nominees. These were approved to be discussed. The Speaker Vambus, he said, no, we don't need to conduct democratic business, state businesses, because I want to also do give and take. Now, let's go back to what the Attorney General is saying. The Attorney General has come in with a very beautiful commentary this afternoon. I have just 2 minutes left. I just hope that the grace of God will let us go through this one quickly. Attorney General, where Attorney General. Okay, beautiful one there. The Attorney General is saying that the decision to halt the removal of the ministerial nominees presented to the Parliament in light of a suit numbered J112/2024. Roxanne Nelson Eche Dafia-Mekpo versus 1. Speaker of Parliament and 2. Attorney General. Respectfully, I am aware of a statement made by your esteemed self in Parliament on the 20th of March 2024 in which you communicated the inability of the House to continue to consider the nomination of His Excellency the President in view of the pendency of what you stated as an injunction motion on notice seeking to restrain the Speaker from proceeding with the vetting and approval filed in the suit referred to above. In furtherance to my role under Article 88 of the Constitution and bearing a constitutional responsibility for the conduct and defense of all civil proceedings against the state, including Parliament, I am constrained to draw your attention to some observations from a study of the suit in the question and then the result of a formal search conducted by registry from the Supreme Court today, 21st of March 2022. So the Attorney General is saying that, hello, Mr. Speaker, I am going to conduct a research on for you to advise you further. 1, what is the research saying? The action filed by Roxanne Eche Dafia-Mekpo of Southern consists of a bare writ of sermons. No statement of case is in support of the writ, filed as mandated by the Supreme Court Rules 1996, CI 16. It's just correct to say, respectfully, that the suit is not properly constituted in accordance with Rule 46.3 of C1 16. Such an action will be struck out where a statement of case is in support of the plaintiff's writ, not filed within the 14 days of requirement. So, viewers, this is where we are going to end tonight. We are going to go on an Easter break. Once you are on the Easter break, ponder over what is going to happen in this country. Now, we only expect the third arm of government, that's the judiciary, that in the midst of this lacuna of who is right and who is wrong, the judiciary will keep the balance now and ensure that we are doing what is right. The name is Pepsival. Have a good night. I'm out.
Osa very mamo